The story takes place in a fictional nation where the news of a mass murder in the city of CIRCE shakes the nation, causing the protagonist of the story, called CIRCE, make a decision of moving from the city life. CIRCE moves to the small town of Dugo, which isn't too far away from CIRCE, in order to have a quieter and less stressful life. As her brother Carl explains in a letter he sent to her, the life in the city can be very stressful, even though there are more jobs available. According to the letter sent to her, it seems as if she made a rash decision to move away despite her parents' pressure to stay and disapproval. She might have had a stable job, but regardless, she badly wanted to move. Even though she has been told life in smaller towns can be more challenging, especially finding a job, CIRCE doesn't seem to struggle much as she quickly finds a job in a bookstore called Bobby's Books. It's not even several days from her move, still having her stuff in boxes, when she quickly found a job. So it doesn't seem it's as bad as the parents try to portray it. As CIRCE makes her way to the bookstore, being her first shift, she fails to get there on time, which makes her boss, Bobby, really mad at her. Regardless, being grumpy, he tells her to start work and clean up the place. After a long shift, the day comes to an end, and CIRCE is excused to leave, but warned not to be late again. As it's heavily raining, she puts on her yellow raincoat and opens the door, but a person rushing and running without looking bumps into her and throws her onto the ground. The person doesn't even stop to apologize, but lucky for CIRCE, they drop a pocket watch, which looks expensive. CIRCE, seeing the individual disappearing, decides to keep the watch for herself and sell it if she ever needs the money. She then goes home and the day comes to an end. As she wakes up in the morning, putting the TV on, the news report on the CIRCE murderer. He has been identified as Tim Travis, a scientist who was working in the local research lab. He happened to have been killed in a similar fashion to his victims, being stabbed and left in the streets. What comes as a shock to the protagonist is that his body was found in the streets of Dugo, the small town CIRCE moved to from CIRCE. The colleagues of Dr. Travis described him as a calm and collected person who had his demeanor changed overnight, becoming restless and tired. It stays as a mystery what really happened to him to make him become such a horrifying killer, killing 8 people in a single night. Feeling shivers running down her spine listening to this news, CIRCE looks at the time and notices that she will be late again. She quickly says hello to her neighbor, Ruth, and runs to the store. Yet again, she arrives late, making Bobby really mad at her. Regardless, he doesn't have many people lined up to work there, so he instructs her to start work immediately. Days pass on just like this, with CIRCE slowly getting into a habit of waking up earlier to get to work on time, but she still doesn't. More than a month goes by, with the news reporting that the CIRCE Science Lab has been working on a theory of time travel, and they have managed to identify there are actual parallel timelines where one can go to the past, which would be in another timeline. Just on that, the weather report Dugo will have heavy rainfall starting from today onwards. CIRCE, in her letter to her brother, explains how she is getting well adjusted to life here, and that despite feeling the move was necessary, she feels she might have made the wrong choice. Eventually, she sets off to work, getting to the bookstore when Bobby lets her finish her shift before he calls her over to have a chat with her.
CIRCE, need to talk to you. Letting you go. Since the first day, you've barely come on time for your goddamn shift. Been real lenient with you since you were new here. Now, you're done. Go home and don't come back tomorrow.
This comes as a shock to CIRCE. She doesn't know how to handle it. In the rush of the moment, everything goes red and veiny brain material shows up in front of her eyes. Just then, CIRCE does the unthinkable, stabbing Bobby and killing him. The blood splashes everywhere, painting the walls and the floor red. CIRCE, being in a panic yet collected, knows she needs to clean up the crime scene and starts mopping the floor and wiping off the blood from the walls. Just as some time passes, CIRCE's neighbor, Ruth, walks into the store and is visibly horrified. She screams out that she always knew CIRCE is a freak and runs with all her might out of the store. It's not clear if what she hears is real or just a figment of her imagination, something that she thinks of herself, as Ruth has been nothing but nice to her, even giving her free furniture as CIRCE was new to town and short on cash. Being in a panic and all sorts of emotions running in her mind, CIRCE runs back home, collecting some stuff to quickly leave town. She takes the watch and takes a knife for protection, while she reads the letter that she sent to her brother, which now has been corrupted with a red pen, reading the word freak and unveiling that she had done this before and that she did something to a person called Lila. It's not clear if it is her mind playing those tricks on her or if she actually wrote on the letter herself, expressing her thoughts. Just as she opens the door trying to run away, she sees the police pointing a gun at her. Seeing how she has a knife in her hand, the police shoots without a question, but something really bizarre happens. She blacks out just to open her eyes, seeing how she is sat in front of the TV, listening to the breaking news reporting on the Zagor killer. She doesn't understand how she traveled back in time 1 month before. It becomes clear the watch that she took from the person who was running is the watch Tim Travis had in her hand while working on a breakthrough on time travel and parallel universes. Having the watch in her hand allowed Kirke to go back in time, or as they explained it on the TV, she managed to travel to a parallel universe earlier in time. Reading the letter from Carl starts making sense now. He wrote about a woman called Lila, saying how people started to move on from her, and something he tries to reassure Kirke to had not been her fault. It seems as if Lila was someone she killed and skipped the town to not get caught. Kirke seems to be struggling with controlling her temper, which results in her killing people. No one seems to have figured out if it was Kirke killing Lila, as the brother tried to comfort her that her death wasn't her fault, but we now know that it was her who caused her death. Understanding that she controls time now, Kirke pays sweet old Ruth a visit, who is usually outside of her home doing morning stretches. As Kirke approaches, she repeats the word freak, interrogating her why she would call her that. But this Ruth is different to the one in the previous timeline and doesn't know who Kirke even is. Kirke, without much hesitation, starts seeing red again and stabs Ruth, causing her death. She uses her watch and abuses time travel, which starts showing a sequence in a pocket dimension where hundreds of corpses fall from the sky. This unveils that Kirke is psychotic and that she has been resetting time again and again for hundreds of times, going back to kill both Ruth and Bobby in different parallel timelines. As she goes back in time again, it has been already 2 days since she killed Ruth again and stuffed her in the shower, planning on going to Bobby to kill him again, saying to herself that she hopes it'll be easier this time around. Exploring her own house before she sets off, she finds a letter from Carl that is hoping for her safety as she has heard about the murder in Dugo that an old lady had died. Alongside the letter, we read another note about the watch and its ability of jumping timelines. It reveals that using it doesn't mean the user goes back in time, but instead their consciousness leaves their body and possesses another version of themselves in a parallel dimension. The question remains, what happens to the consciousness that they leave behind in their previous body? Just then, a mindless and psychotic Kirke dismisses all this just to go to Bobby and kill him yet again after many times. As she goes to the store, Bobby is confused to who she is, but when Kirke introduces herself, Bobby explains that she was supposed to be in the bookstore 2 days ago and he doesn't want her here anymore. She simply smiles, seeing red, saying how Bobby always makes it easy for her, as he has a rude personality. Just before Bobby can say another word, she plunges the knife into his body and takes his life yet again. A witness by the door sees all of it, which makes Kirke pull out her watch to jump to another universe again. For her at this point, none of this matters because she can go to another parallel universe and do this all over again. As she tries to use the watch, for some reason it doesn't work and she is faced with the consequences of her psychotic and careless actions. She is left in this universe to answer for the crimes that she has committed. Nervously running home, she comes across a person in her own yellow raincoat standing in the middle of the road. This really confuses Kirke. She slowly approaches this person, which turns out to be herself from a different dimension. A dimension that she left behind after getting shot by the police. This version of her was the first person in the beginning who got caught by the police. Somehow, this consciousness has found a way to meet Kirke, tracking her down to take vengeance. She tackles Kirke down to the ground and stabs her, but at the same time, Kirke uses her own knife and takes the life of this version of herself. Just on that note, Kirke goes down a rabbit hole of insanity, with the parallel universes all collapsing on each other. She finds a dresser with a mirror in the middle of the street, looking at herself, seeing what an unusual monster she has become. She has the old blood of her victims and wide-opened, deranged eyes, thirsty for more blood. That's when eventually police catches up to her and finally arrest her. This time around, she is unable to reverse time or jump to another parallel dimension, left to answer for the murder of Bobby, Ruth, and her own self in a different body. She explains her case to the authorities that she has been traveling time and killing her victims over hundreds of times as a way to punish them. But of course, the police thinks that she has lost the plot and put her in prison for life. The strange circumstances don't end here, as after just 1 year in 2006, she loses her life with no clear cause. It seems as if her life or consciousness just left her body. Her photo is then published to the public, how she looked on the last photo taken of her. She looks kinda normal, and nothing like what we saw when she was seeing herself in a mirror. So, what really happened, and did Tim Travis actually kill those 8 people in Sault? It seems as if Tim actually killed those 8 people after already jumping many parallel dimensions. Eventually, the watch seems to stop working for him, just like how it did for Kirke, who decides to run away, ironically going to the town where she is, Dugo. There he bumps into Kirke and loses the watch, which she steals and takes with her. In Dugo, he is found dead, being stabbed multiple times by someone who they never catch. So I think the person who stabbed him was none other than another version of himself who tracked him down to kill him, as he committed a massacre and left the timeline for another consciousness to suffer the consequences. This is exactly what happens to Kirke. She jumps the timeline so many times until it stops working, and the common denominator here is that they meet another version of themselves. So it seems when 2 versions of the same individual are within the same timeline, it stops the person from jumping again. This is also what happened to Kirke. The mysterious death that soon follows could mean 2 different things. The timeline does not allow a foreign consciousness stay in a timeline that they don't belong in, so the consciousness without the watch would simply disappear and vanish. Or the other possibility is that Kirke somehow managed to jump the timeline again into another parallel dimension where she can do this all over again. This was a very interesting story by Kulo, the same dev for Hungry Lamu, which was a game that I covered in many videos. Anyway folks, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to stay tuned for more by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. As always, it's been your host Star. Thanks for being here, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.